Dear poor people, does Will Smith owe black people an apology? Stephen A. Smith thinks so.
This edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show coming at you like I love to do at the very least 3 days a week over the digital airwaves of YouTube. I got to get back to the Will Smith topic that I tackled because it created some noise, as most things that I usually do. It's just the way it goes for me. I'm not here to apologize for anything, but I am here to clarify because I want to make sure that everybody understands where I was coming from. When I spoke Friday about Will Smith and the new Bad Boy movies, the Bad Boys Ride or Die movie coming out with him and Martin Lawrence that had been out for a couple of days. First things first, our initial reporting was stating that it was coming up short compared to what it had done numbers-wise in the past at the box office for Bad Boys 1, 2, and 3. Well, it turns out that this was a very productive weekend for Bad Boys Ride or Die. And Martin Lawrence and Will Smith deserve a boatload of credit for that because they got people returning to the movie theaters. So that was a huge, huge plus, and we can't ignore that. And let's give props where props is due. But I want to get more specific into what my take is before I have my boy on. Even though we're both in a similar venue, we're right near one another. I was having some technical difficulties, so he's going to be in a separate room because we down here in Florida, but he's right here in the same vicinity as me. I just got him in a separate room, and I'll let you see who he is in a second. Let me say this to y'all. I don't know if I'll ever get over what Will Smith did to Chris Rock. But that doesn't mean I have to. And it doesn't mean that it's a license for me to negatively impact Will Smith. Will Smith slapping Chris Rock was a devastating thing. I'm not talking just for Chris Rock, who's a friend of mine. I'm talking for the black community because obviously Will Packer was the first black producer to be doing the Oscars in its history. And that was a devastating blow to him. Will Smith came out with Emancipation a year later for Apple and all of that stuff. Will Smith was sensational in that movie. So was Antoine Fuqua, the esteemed director and producer extraordinaire. One could easily argue that both of them would have won an Oscar for that, and that Will slap cost Will Smith and Antoine Fuqua an Oscar. That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about black folks everywhere aspiring to be in this business, aspiring to succeed, and something like that happens, and it was a blemish on all of us. Because I know.
Okay. So first of all, I have mixed feelings about this Stephen A's approach. I don't have mixed feelings about the issue of Will Smith. Do I think that Will Smith owes black people an apology? Absolutely not. Do I think that Will Smith owes his fans a sincere apology? Absolutely. So, no, I don't think he owes black people an apology. I think he owes his fans an apology. And Stephen A does seem like he's backpedaling a little bit because you came out very strong because the box office you didn't think was doing so great. Turns out they, was very successful. The past couple weekends, Bad Boy has done well at the box office. So now it's sort of like, I don't have to, dislike him. I don't have to get over it. But I will say where I do agree with Stephen A is in I am not quick to turn over and just forgive and move on from that moment because I think it absolutely was a terrible, terrible moment. And I think that Will Smith should not only pay for that, but I'm not interested in supporting him further until and this is just me, everybody can choose for themselves, but until I get some more understanding about what that was about, because the whole thing looked absolutely crazy. And what it revealed to me, and I think to many others, is that the whole Will Smith, Jada and the kids, all of this that we had seen for the last 20, 25 years out of Will Smith, and everything around him was an absolute fraud. Absolute fraud. He is not the man we thought he was. He is not. And I was a huge Will Smith fan. I, like everybody, has my favorite Will Smith movies. He was, I believe, a math whiz. He turned down the full scholarship to MIT, and then the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and then Parents Just Don't Understand, and grew up and did Summertime. Summertime is still one of my favorite summertime songs. So Will Smith is very much a part of our culture, our growing up, our childhood, and the level of disappointment that came out of his behavior that night told me that he is a man who's extremely dysfunctional, very low character, and seems to be, now I don't know this, but seems to be in a very dysfunctional marriage and lifestyle that he cannot get out of. And possibly that is the frustration that is leading to this very erratic, very dysfunctional behavior. I remember when we saw his kids, and everybody was like, oh, something wrong with that. Something looked like, the kids, no one likes to talk about anybody else's kids, and I get that, and that's fair. But, you can see people's children and go, I don't want my kids to go that way. I mean, good for them, but that's not what I'd want to raise. That's not what I'd be proud of. And we saw his children, and they looked, like they were having some difficulties. And it didn't seem at all that he and Jada, and Lord, that red table talk, my God. Oh, I don't know if there has been anything more insufferable than her mother, and her daughter, 3 generations of women on that red table talk. I mean, that was, oh God, it was just absolutely insufferable. And the thing about Jada is, I think she is a person who does not have the capacity for any level of remorse. Everything she does is fine, as long as she thinks she was justified in doing it. She couldn't apologize for that affair. She didn't apologize for nothing. Nothing. She is not apologizing for it. And so she is, in my opinion, someone who's extremely dangerous to be around, because that's somebody who can hurt you without an ounce of guilt, without an ounce of needing to retrace their steps, needing to sort of look at themselves, evaluate their behavior, feel sorry, and then say they're sorry. Oh, you can forget all of that from Jay. Jay's not doing that. And I don't know why he's stuck and trapped in that marriage or whatever, but he just seems to be in some kind of vortex that he is sucking him, and he can't get out of. But that notwithstanding, you have a fan base for whom you have lived a lie in front of for many years, who I do believe, me included, owe some level of understanding and sincere apology from Will Smith. So let's finish up with what Stephen A has to say. I think Stephen A is right in the fact, and I don't think maybe even Will has an idea of how absolutely just mortifying and devastating that moment was. To watch him do that was absolutely horrible. I cannot excuse it, and I haven't been asked to, because nobody has, as far as Will Smith is concerned, has really come out and made what I think is a sufficient apology. So I haven't excused it, and he hadn't asked me to.
I know how much white America reveres Will Smith. And the thinking along the lines in my mind was, hell, if he did that, what would the rest of us do? There are certain things that happen in the lives of an individual where those incidences are used as a license to castigate the rest of us. And that's what I was thinking about when I said what I said Friday about being torn as to wanting to go see the movie but not wanting to see Will Smith. I wasn't encouraging anybody else not to do it. I was just saying that I was having trouble dealing with it. And then I got a call from my man, Charlie Mack. Charlie Mack is Will Smith's former security, good friend of Will Smith, closely connected to Will Smith for decades. I've known Charlie Mack for nearly 30 years. I got a lot of love for him. And he was on fire. calling me because he disagreed with my opinion and was going back and forth with me about it. And then he caught me because he says, Stephen A., what about Grace? What about Grace? This is how he feeds his family. This is how he earns his living. He don't have a right to earn a living ever again. He can't make a mistake, Stephen A., when he never made a mistake before. That's a damn good point.
My issue with Stephen A. Smith is very much that Stephen A. Smith seems to go through his life, and the only way he knows how to view the world and how to understand anything that's happening in the world is to view it through a race, gender, class prism. So he's talking about how he feels like Will Smith owes the Black community an apology because the Black community, had a Black person that was the first to produce that Oscars, and this horrible event, which it was, happened on this man's watch. And what a stain it was for all Black people that this happened, and other people, Blacks that are coming up in the industry, that presumably white people would think, well, if Will Smith could do something like this, then other Black people might do something of this. Well, let me disabuse you, Stephen A. Let me help you. First of all human beings are capable of everything that all other human beings are capable of. So Black people are as equally as capable of being majestic and being wonderful as they are being downright dirty and loathsome, because that is the capacity, that's the span of human capacities. And since we are human, we have those capacities. So anybody who's foolish enough to think, well, if one Black person did something bad, then that might mean all Black people or other Black people could do something bad. Guess what? They'd be right. They can. Just the same way if one Black person does something good, or one Asian person, or one Latino person, or one any kind of person does anything, we're as capable of everything as everybody else is. So it's a foolish way to think, and it's very sad. And many, at least Black people that I see on television and in media, even some on the internet, who have this idea, who are so connected to the community, in the community, in the communita, all of that foolishness, that whatever happens with one Black person is reflective of other Black people. I personally think that's a sickness. It is a sickness to think that your destiny is tied up into what someone of your race, your class, and your gender does. That you don't get to be an individual, and that you can't be an individual because you have taken your individuality and your personage, that which makes you you, and you have actually given it away to, presumably in this case, white people. And then you are standing back, waiting for white people to decide not just what they're going to do to you personally, but what they're going to do to anyone of your race, class, and gender. Because what they do to someone you may not even know has some mysterious effect on you. I think that's very sad. So I really understand. I'm even somewhat sympathetic to people who live under this race, class, gender prism. They have no other way to understand the world but through the lens of race, class, and gender. I can see why they're angry. I can see that these constructs to me are constructs of liberalism. I'm not sure if Stephen A. himself considers himself to be a liberal, but certainly does seem to be under the constructs of liberalism. And it's very, very sad. I can see why these people are so angry, possibly even Will Smith. I can see why these people are so angry, and I can see why they're so hurt, because they're walking around in a world where they cannot control themselves because they've given that control to other people, and they don't have an understanding of or they have no way to perceive or understand information that can help them break out of it, because they are stuck in this prism, this race, class, gender prism. And in that prism, there's no way out for them, because the power was taken from them and given to someone else. And now that they're powerless, they're at the whim of the people for whom they've given their personal power. So I do feel bad. The internet is littered with commercials about how you can go and talk to someone. I advise people who are suffering in this way to go. If they got a pill, take the pill, whatever remedies they have to offer you, because to be stuck like that in your life sounds to me to be horrible. I would never want to live my life as someone else's puppet. I just wouldn't want to do it. I would not want to be trapped in somebody else's vision of me. I would not want to be trapped. And the crazy thing about it is, it's a trap that they made for themselves, because nobody cares. All of this race, class, gender that you so vehemently believe is so important to other people, it's not. They don't care. The people who care are you. You all are keeping this up. Other people aren't necessarily keeping this up. They don't wake up in the morning going, what can I do to affect the self-esteem of Black people? They're not doing that. Y'all are doing that. You should relax, get some help, take the pill, do whatever it is that you need to do. And I do. I feel sorry. That is a horrible way to live. Who would want to live like that? Not me. So I can understand Stephen A's difficulty in meeting this moment and why he feels that Black people are owed an apology, because he feels like an offense was done because something happened between two people that white people saw, and somehow that cast a light on the other 14 million of us. Somehow we're now in jeopardy. I want to assure you, Stephen A, I'm fine. Things with me have been going well. They were going well before the slap. I'm doing even better after the slap. So, you can relax. It's not happening. It's not happening at all. But again, I do feel bad for some folks who are trapped in that mindset. It sounds like an awful, awful way to live. An awful way to live. And I feel very sorry for Will Smith, but I can say this. I believe in grace. Yes, people should be extended grace. God knows I've needed it in the past and will need it again. However, grace is something that you have to ask for, indeed and in sincerity. And I don't think that Will Smith has asked for any grace. And I think he, unfortunately, is trapped in a level of dysfunction we can't even possibly begin to understand. Cannot begin, because that red table talk told me, oh, there is nothing more insufferable than that red table talk. So the fact that he is in and involved, and that is his household, and that is his family, and that is the product that his family could come up with, that is a level of dysfunction that is absolutely unimaginable to me. So I wish them all well. But until Will Smith comes out and has a real explanation for his behavior, I'm not back on board. I'm just not. And I can see why Stephen A is struggling. Poor Stephen A feels like he should be on his side because he's Black, but not on his side because he know he did wrong and can't figure out what to do. But again, Stephen A, you break free of that bondage, and then you'll know exactly how to feel, and you'll know exactly what to do. Thank you for joining my channel, watching this video, coming visiting me here. Please remember to like, share, subscribe. Click the notification button so you'll know the next time my video drops. I really appreciate you visiting my channel, and I can't wait till you come back. Bye-bye.